Today we're going to talk about skin in the game. Skin in the Game, one of my favorite books, written by a guy named Nassim Taleb, and he comes from the world of finance and the concepts as he's extracted and what's made him a lot of money has been useful in other areas. One of these things is skin in the game. He did not invent the idea of skin in the game, obviously. It's a phrase that predates his usage of it. But the whole idea is, if you can't suffer the consequence of being wrong, the weight of your opinion is negligible. Right? The only men who speak without consequence are, I don't know what, priests. Right? They got a good gig going. Priests. Draw a contrast. I don't mean to be offensive. It's just by accident. On the opposite end of the spectrum, you have the warrior. If the warrior's wrong, he dies. He's dead. I've had the privilege of training some of the most elite military guys in the country, and it was an absolute privilege to do so. One of the things that impressed me with them is not only their ability to just be coachable, but also their understanding that, yeah, we can't mess this up. That's how people die. And there was a time, I would argue, that, in the history of humankind, that the consequence of death was a lot more present than it is now, right? An equivalent now would be like, I don't know, diabetes, right? People get diabetes now like people back then used to die. Consequence isn't that much compared to then. But when the consequence is absolute, that's when you're supposed to get a seat at the table when it comes to making a decision. One of the biggest things that gets in the way of students when they start training martial arts is they want it to be comfortable, right? They want the air conditioning on. That's a thing. About 15 years ago, you guys ever hear of Sam Hyde? Sam Hyde used to train with me. He tells this story that when he first started training, he came in, and it was the middle of the winter. This is in the Bronx. And I had a little space heater that I would rarely put on. And it could be 10 degrees outside, and the mats were frozen. We're sitting there, training, no gi. And he tells the story that he was in there one day. He was training with me for a couple of months, and a guy came in and said, MC, can you put the heat on? It's freezing. And I looked at him without missing a beat, and I said, no. It was so hot in here, I had to turn the air conditioning on. And he went, really? I said, yeah, you should have seen like 20 minutes ago, you couldn't even be in here. It was unbearable. He was like, all right, no problem. Me telling that one story, he was like, okay. He was willing to accept everything that he was complaining about before. But the tendency at that point, newer guy, I'm uncomfortable, I want to tell somebody about it. In martial arts, one of the most, and this is not a universal thing, right? Just understand that I include nuance in this point. The majority of time that you are uncomfortable at the beginning of training martial arts, it's nobody's business but yours. There's a difference between being uncomfortable and being in danger. Being inconvenienced and being threatened. It's very hard for people, and I've been running a school over 20 years. I can't tell you how many white belts have debated me on techniques, have debated me on strategy. And it's like, okay, that's fine, you can do what you want. But just understand the weight, the gravity of your opinion is nothing. And it's not any personal thing, it's that you have no skin in the game. If he's wrong, nothing happens. If I'm wrong, not only do my guys become less effective, my fighters lose, I might wind up out of business. There are all of these consequences that are behind my opinions on the things that I do, technically. And they just haven't had that yet. So there's a point where when I say I don't care what you think about this, it has nothing to do with you as a person. It has to do with you as somebody who has been vetted by pressure. When you come in here for the first time having been untrained, you're terrible at this. In order to fix you from being terrible, you have to be broken down and then built back up. I don't mean as a person, that happens as a byproduct a lot of times. I mean in all of the reflexive responses you have. Right? Best example I have of this, somebody starts sparring for the first time, their first day sparring. right? And they might look great on the pads, on the heavy bag, but now somebody's in front of them swinging at them. This is what they're doing, right? They're pulling their face away, they're closing their eyes, they look terrible. To me, I don't look at that guy and say, oh, he's going to be terrible. Look at him, he's soft. No, I understand this is stimulus and reaction. This is like from the nervous system is controlling this right now. Why do we close our eyes? Why do we turn away? Because from an evolutionary standpoint, it makes sense. Preserve our ability to see. Don't mess up our face, right? These things make sense in a biological sense, but when we're learning how to fight, that has nothing to do with it. We have to transcend that because we have a mission. Our mission isn't to just stay safe. Our mission is to win this particular thing that we're on right now. That requires training. That means that things that you feel at the core of who you are wrong. I want to fight, I want to be UFC champion. And then I give you the information. Okay, don't turn your face away, keep your hands up, don't close your eyes. And then you do it. It would be a mistake on me to say, I just told you not to do that. Because I'm fully aware that you can't just make a decision to stop doing these things that are embedded in how you react to stimulation. Which means it is the baby learning how to walk. So I'll tell somebody 100 times in a row, stop moving your head away, stop moving your head away. And then they'll get frustrated. I heard you. It's like, did you think that I said it again because I didn't hear you? Or you didn't hear me? Is that why you think I said it? Yeah, but you keep saying the same thing. But you're not doing it. Yeah, but I'm trying. I know. But you keep saying it. So is it your opinion, Mr. White Belt, that me saying it again is not bringing you any closer to this process? Do you understand how that is now, the skin in the game thing? It's like he has an opinion on this. One of my, because obviously I've had to temper myself over the years because I want people to keep coming back. One of my phrases I developed like all these funny things that I'll say to people instead of what I used to say back in like 2003, where people would cry, leave, Luckily back then there was no Google, so there's no Google reviews. But I'd say, do me a favor. I understand what you're saying. I'm real busy right now. Do me a favor, write it down, and I'll read it later. And most people would suck their teeth, and it's like, yeah. It's like, what are we doing right now? The best piece of advice I can give you is just shut up and train. Just shut up and train. Right? Very hard to do. If you don't have skin in the game, you just have to understand why nobody who does have skin in the game is not going to listen to you. It has nothing to do with you personally. It's that the process suffers when people who don't have skin in the game are able to make decisions about it. Right? I don't want to get political. This is going to be the almost remotely political thing I say, just because it's a good example of this. Throughout history, most of the people who decided to go to war were people who didn't have to fight in them. Right? And there is a skin in the game. They didn't have to fight in them, and their kids didn't have to fight in them. It doesn't mean that the reason for going to war is good or bad. It just so happens that disproportionately that is what happened. With no skin in the game, we have to question the very validity of the opinion that's being stated. All right? Hope that wasn't a little too, abstract for you guys. But appreciate you guys. Let's get on to the promotions.